Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar today, where we're going to explore the benefits of business review meetings for businesses, companies, partnerships, even sole traders to be operating. My name's Peter Towers. I'm the Managing Director of Towers Business Development. I hope that you're having a wonderful day today, and that everything is going okay. We just hope that's a bit better on the camera there now. Regular meetings, why? Why do we have them? I think it helps improve the internal communications and awareness within an organization. It's corporate governance in action. Corporate governance is very important. We read about it. Many of you have been to courses on it. But this is one of the key functions of corporate governance, making sure there is proper communication occurring within an organization. And what's this mean? I think it means following up the minutes of the previous meeting that are prepared and promptly distributed to the attendees, together with the action plan. The action plan is very important. Ensure that deadlines are met relative to the next meeting. Participants should read all material before the meetings so they turn up with their brains in gear. They're underway. There's no having to sit and read papers or get briefed on what the situation really is. Now, this just doesn't occur. It requires planning and discipline to run organized meetings. In lots of ways, a financial person could be the internal chief financial officer if your business has one, or you're an internal accountant, or your external accountant or an advisor that has an accounting background. Doesn't necessarily have to be someone within the organization, because they're normally too busy. The minutes should be prepared promptly and distributed, as should the action plan, so that people know what's going on. But it's important that reports are prepared by whoever is on the list to prepare a report or to respond to an item that was included in the action plan from last time. And deadlines should be met. I think all reports should be assembled and distributed to the attendees 72 hours prior to a meeting, so they got time to read it, think about it, and get the brain in gear as to what they're going to discuss. When I was the company secretary of a listed public company, we had to get everything out within that 72-hour period, and we had no internet in those days. So board reports were actually delivered to the directors to read 72 hours before. Nothing was allowed to go on the agenda after that time either. Although now and again, the chairman, who was also the CEO, did introduce a few things. Now let's look at some of the key items that I think need to be discussed in business review meetings if they're going to play a real role in helping your business. Weekly performance reports. I'm fanatical about weekly performance reports being prepared for all business activities. And please don't do it on the overall business if you've got 5 or 6 separate business activities. Prepare your reports on individual businesses, because this is what big business does. They break their operations down into a series of small businesses. The key performance indicators should also be prepared for all business units. And whoever is the manager of each of those units should prepare a fairly basic, but nevertheless very important report. It's very good from that manager's point of view in actually preparing that report. He will probably, or she will probably not be a member of the leadership team in a business. Sometimes they might be, other times they won't be. This is their opportunity to make a comment to their superiors as to various aspects of the business that they're responsible for. At the end of the month, the accounting team should have prepared monthly financial accounts. And once again, I believe that should be dissected into all business activity that's operating within the overall business. It can then be consolidated, so you've got an overall report. And at the end of the year, it's basically that consolidated profit and loss account, which will be utilized to supply data to the tax office. But during the year, I think it's very important that the accounts are dissected so that they're produced for individual business units. So you've got something to go by. Also, it's important to have monthly key performance indicator reports for all business units. The individual manager could also prepare a report on a monthly basis. This is now going to the formal leadership team meeting. Financial accounts should be prepared, showing actuals as compared to budgets. What's been the variations? What changes could be made? And then we start going through some of the normal items that need to be reported to these meetings, but don't make it mundane. These items are very important. The working capital review, debtors. What was the level of investment in debtors? What was debtors days outstanding? What was the amount of bad debts written off this month? What was the timing of the debtor statements being emailed to the customers? And notice I use the word email. Please don't use snail mail to send statements out. How long? 48 hours after the end of the month, the debtor statement should be emailed, I think, if you want to get paid promptly. And really monitor the debtors days outstanding. What about the inventory? What's the level of investment in stock? What was budgeted to be the stock investment? Why the overrun? Normally it's an overrun. What's the stock turn been achieved in the key departments? Work in progress, if you have work in progress, what's the level of investment? How many jobs have been in the system for more than a month or 2 months, whatever the parameter that your organization has established? Because you've got to be careful that work in progress account is not a convenient parking area to park a problem job under some future date before the actual results, which might be a loss, are revealed. Management should be conscious of this and looking at it. The bank account. How's the bank account line up against what had been budgeted? What are the reasons for the movements? Part of it might come out of the investment in debtors and work in progress and perhaps capital expenditure, but that should have been budgeted. What are the other variations? Creditors. Creditors should also be analysed because it's very important that the leadership team understand what the overall situation is. Which of your creditors have not been paid in accordance with the negotiations that you've had with them? If you've agreed to pay businesses in 30 days, how many of them are you not paying in 30 days? Because that could lead to action. It could lead to supplies being cut off, and that can be a very big problem for most businesses. What's the creditors' days outstanding? Has any creditor taken action against the business for anything, particularly lack of payment? What loan commitments were scheduled to be paid during the previous month? Have they all been paid? It's probably all that's got to be said, but the leadership team should get an assurance that the payments have been made. What about the Australian Taxation Office? Have superannuation payments been made as required? Has the PAYG tax payments been made to the tax office? Has any normal income tax payments been made? Have any action been taken by the ATO against the business? Has there been updated financial projections prepared so that the team can look at it? That's projected budgets, projected cash flow forecasts, and projected balance sheets. And are these now based on the latest financial accounts? So we got the financial accounts to the end of the previous month, and here are the updated projections going forward, so that the leadership team is getting a realistic, virtually real-time update that they can then look at. This is where we're now headed. This is what we need to closely look at to see whether we can influence some of this, improve it. Or is it going to be a very troublesome road? What have the marketing people got to say about what's happening? You know, there's a lot of changes occurring in the business world. I watched a webinar earlier this morning which said that 81% of businesses now believe that we're not going to return to pre-COVID-19 commercial activities, the way we used to run businesses. Everything's changed. We've learned to use this medium called Zoom. And there are others out there, of course. But what else has changed? How is business now going to be undertaken? What's your marketing department telling you as to the changes that are going to be made? What's going on in sales? Have the sales department followed up some of the leads they've got from marketing? And have they been able to negotiate contracts? Are they at reasonable prices? This is what the leadership team need to be hearing, need to be understanding. What about raw materials? One thing that has happened during COVID-19 is that a lot of businesses have had trouble getting raw materials and supplies because their suppliers were either not able to supply because their factories were not working, or there was some sort of political interference. But what's happening with suppliers? Does the business need to diversify its suppliers so that instead of getting all supplies from one particular business or one particular country, should part of the supply equation be moved to another part of the world, to another supplier in another country? These are the questions that the leadership team should be looking at. What's the production? Is the team that are currently employed got the manpower to be able to produce the number of units, widgets that are required to meet the sales projections, the forward sales projections as to what the business can sell? What's been included in the business's budget that the leadership teams just looked at, the updated financial forecast? How is the production being coordinated? How many shifts have got to be worked? Is there enough labor available to work shift works? Can the business legally operate a night shift? Or is there going to be problems with local government or state government because of noise or pollution or what other problems? What feedback's the business getting from customers? Are the customers saying they want some different products? Are they whinging about price? What other changes are occurring? Are they wanting to trade in a different manner? Is there a customer advisory committee? What suggestions have they been making back to the business? Research and development projects, is the company undertaking any of those? Because you've got to be a company to undertake research and development projects if you wish to claim the research and development incentive rebate. If you don't want to claim the rebate, you don't have to be a company, of course, but it's a good idea. So how are the projects going? Are there reports being submitted to the leadership team and then onto the board of directors? Has there been a decision made to commercialise some of these research and development projects? Indeed, you may have a proposal in front of the leadership team at this particular meeting that you're getting ready for. Has the proponent prepared the report? Is there some projected financial reports as to how this new product or service or process may perform? Because if a company's undertaken research and development activities, and a lot of them would not have been successful. So if there is a favorable one coming along, there needs to be some real energy put in to try to make sure that it is an outstanding commercial success, because the company has probably spent a lot of money on various R&D projects, and now there is one or two that look like they're going to be successful. There needs to be some real energy put into that to make sure it is very successful. What's going on with competitors? Do you know? Has there been an analysis done, a SWOT analysis on competitors I think it should be updated every 3 to 4 months. What are your competitors doing? If you have got no one internally who can undertake that, your external consultant could undertake that for you, whereby there's an analysis made of the competitors' websites, so the articles they're putting out into the public arena, articles that have been in the local media about them, general industry gossip. What are they doing? Because I think that's very important for a leadership team to sit down and look at. There's no rule that you can't copy, as long as it's not an item that's subject to copyright or has been patented, then you can't copy. Professional development is very important for the leadership team members. The business should have developed a professional development program. Has that been abided by? Have people been going to their courses? Whether they're on public speaking, whether they're on using Zoom, whether they're on corporate governance, it doesn't really matter as long as the program's been fulfilled, so that the directors get a report to say that the professional development activities have been undertaken. And just as important is team training for your team. It might be on workplace health and safety related items. It might be on forklift certificates. It might be on working at heights. If there's a program, is it being implemented so that the various qualifications and tickets that are required more and more these days have been earned, acquired, and are they recorded in the business's register so that there's a clear understanding of who is licensed for what particular activities, to make sure that the organisation has some depth to be able to handle the work that you're in the marketplace seeking with qualified people. Legal update. Has any legal notifications been received by the business? Have you taken legal action against anyone else? And what's the current position, so that everyone's got an awareness of what's happening? Workplace health and safety report, very, very important. Has there been any incidents in the previous month? Has there been any tragedies, deaths, or very serious accidents? What's the current status of the injuries that people have sustained? What was learnt from these incidents? Have changes been made in the staff training and the briefing sessions that have been undertaken for the team? Fair Work Australia, has there been any complaints lodged with Fair Work Australia by any team member or ex-team member? Has someone brought the team up to date with the latest pronouncements coming from Fair Work Australia on various issues, so that the leaders are aware of any changing circumstances? If your organisation is a member of another organisation, has someone followed up on what that particular organisation that you're undoubtedly paying membership fees to has been doing, and what activity or action does your business need to take to benefit from the action that a chamber of commerce or an industry association or the state representative body is embarking on that could benefit your business? After all, you are paying membership fees to these organisations. Is someone monitoring what they're doing and then making sure that you can dovetail into implementing some of those activities for your benefit with your customers and with your prospects? What's happening with the website? Has someone looked at it and analysed it? Is it current, or has it got information about webinars you ran 3 years ago still featured prominently on it? In other words, is it being refreshed on an ongoing basis? Is it telling your business's story today? Not as it was a year ago, not as it was 18 months ago, pre-COVID-19. Social media, has it been effectively used? Key people being seen on social media from your organisation? A team meeting's been held. Is there reports being submitted by the responsible leader of the team meetings that have been held in the parts of the organisation that they are responsible for? What's the feedback? Is the team happy, or is there changes that the leaders need to be considering, or perhaps making suggestions through to the board of directors? Is the business exporting? Is its turnover under $20 million? If so, would you like to get some export market development grant? There's a new system applying now for export market development grants. You have to apply. The current application process is already opened. It started on the 16th of August and it runs through to the 30th of November. So you've got a couple more months to get your application prepared, lodged, and Austrade will then determine who's getting what grants. But in total, a business can claim export market development grant for 8 years and earn a total of $770,000. There are now 3 tiers relative to the Austrade process that you could work through. So it's well worth exploring and having a good look at. Imports are important. And if you are an importer, there's some government benefits you can get. Grants. There are hundreds of government grants from the Australian government, state and territory governments that someone should be monitoring if your organisation is potentially eligible for those grants, which in the main are targeted at SMEs. But SMEs have got various turnover limits for grants. $20 million is quite normal to be considered an SME. Business funding. Do the forward projections indicate that the company may need an injection of funds over the next 6 to 12 months? Where are you going to get that money from? If you want to borrow it, do you have to produce real estate security? If so, has the business got a spare asset or two that could be offered to a financier? If not, what are the alternatives? Well, the alternatives today are a lot better than what they were 4 or 5 years ago, because the company can now raise capital direct from the public as a Section 708 company. We've had that opportunity for 35 years, but that's a limit of $2 million in 12 months from no more than 20 investors. And a private company can only have 50 shareholders. So you can soon run out of the opportunities to use Section 708. But for the last 4 years, we've had crowdsourced funding equity raising. You can raise up to $5 million in a 12-month period and then go back to the market and try and do the same thing the following year if you've got a good story to tell and the market is impressed. The turnover limit there is $25 million or gross value of assets at $25 million. So perhaps you want to look at business funding. The business should have a strategic plan or a business plan, and that should have identified the strategies that the business is going to try to implement. But the key thing then is having an agreement on how you're going to implement those strategies. Has that been considered by the leadership team? Because the board of directors will want to know that these things have been activated. It's relatively simple to prepare a list of strategies. The real challenge for the leadership team is how do you implement them? How do you get them across to all your team so that they understand what's going on? So that's an overview of some of the key items, as I see it, that relate to a business review meeting. So does your organisation need assistance in the implementation of regular business advisory meetings? How often would you present them? I think every month. You need to get your business, if it's growing, if it's planning to expand and scale up, it needs to get as close as possible to what happens at the big end of town. They have monthly key meetings. Maybe you don't have them for every month of the year. Maybe you don't have either the month of December or the month of January, but the rest of the year is very important to get this process happening. Because by forcing that to happen out of every organisation, starting daily, then into weekly reports. It's forcing that to happen at each of those business activities that an organization has. We can assist you on this process. I was the Chief Financial Officer and Company Secretary of a stock exchange listed company and saw how the whole process worked. I had to implement it, make it sure it did work. And I've worked with numerous SME companies over the last 25 years in trying to get this process to work for them so that they get more information. And some of them have gone on to grow and be quite valuable organizations. An external advisor can be a great person to be the facilitator to make sure this process all happens, because you probably haven't got someone sitting in the organization who's got the experience, the authority, and the time to be able to make this happen on a regular basis. But you will then find that your leadership team meetings or your management team meetings function very effectively. So if you want to, please contact us and I'll be happy to have a yarn to you and give you an overview of what we can do for you and then give you a proposal. Upcoming webinars. The last of our August webinars is on Thursday, the 26th of August, when we're going to look at business funding for your business. And I gave you an introduction to the business funding questions a little while ago when we looked at some of the capital raising opportunities. That's well worth you attending that or listening to our video on it if you are interested in that subject. So to register for that webinar, please go to our website, Towers Business Development, and click on webinars. If you want some more information, please contact me. Go to our website, www.towersbusiness.com.au, or send me an email, peter@towersbusiness.com.au, or if you want to, you can ring me, 1-800-232-088. I don't seem to have any questions. I hope that means we've answered your questions that you have. But if you think of some questions later on, or you'd like to clarify something that I've said on this very interesting overview of business review meetings, please contact me. I look forward to hearing from you. Stay safe wherever you are around Australia. I hope that if you are in lockdown, that you're going to be out of those problems soon, and hopefully we'll get the injection rate up to the targeted figures of over 70% so that we can go back to a more normal lifestyle for Australians. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and I look forward to talking to you again next week when we present our next webinar in this series. Thank you. Goodbye.